this is the virtual assistant, the bot to rule them all workshop. I'm Micaela. I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I'm a lead developer at Southworks, engineering student at UTN. And I like to think of myself as a problem creator, problem solving developer, which is kind of what got me interested in bots. Usually, I find a problem, I say, hey, I can solve this with a chatbot and help people, and then I end up coding it and fixing bugs and problems solved, problems created. So the agenda for today is pretty simple. I'm going to start with an introduction to the workshop, some of the tools I'm going to be using, where you can find the code. Then I'm going to speak about what's a virtual assistant. After that, we're going to see what a skill is. And then we're going to customize and deploy to Azure our own skill. So, tools for the workshop. I'm going to be using Visual Studio and the Bot Framework Emulator. We're going to use the Netcore SDK and ngrok, all of this to test and code our bot. Then to connect, disconnect, and deploy the bot, I'm going to be using the bot skills CLI, PowerShell, the Azure CLI, and I'm going to be using my Azure subscription. The free subscription works for this. And finally, if you want to check out the code, you can go to GitHub and Southworks/Virtual Assistant Workshop. There we have all the code for these things I'm going to be showing and another implementation of another skill. So, the big question, what's a virtual assistant? I like to think of the virtual assistant as the bot to rule them all. So my boss usually tells me that I don't need to know stuff. I just need to know the number of the person who knows that stuff. And I think that's kind of the virtual assistant in a nutshell. It's basically an orchestrator bot that can connect to multiple functionalities and dispatch the user's messages to those functionalities. Now, if I wanted to explain what I just said in English, I would probably do something like this. So, imagine this. I'm a developer, and I work at Contoso. And when I started to work there, the company was really small. But nowadays, we have 300 employees. When it was a small company, HR always sent a happy birthday message to people saying, hey, happy birthday, have a nice day. However, you can imagine that when you are 300 employees, it's kind of hard to accomplish that. So as I said before, I love bots, and I thought, hey, we can solve this with a happy birthday bot. So we did, we coded it, and now our Slack directory has a happy birthday bot. However, the happy birthday bot made people realize, hey, I want a bot that can tell me what I have to do during the day. So that's how the to-do list bot was built. Then we said, hey, I want to solve tickets, to create tickets, to troubleshoot level 1 issues. So we created a ticket making bot, which led to the CEO of the company wanted a contact bot to be able to get the contact information from anyone in the company, which led, of course, to a meetings bot. So you could say, hey, now that I have the contact information, can you please book me a meeting? And that led to us developers creating weird bots like the pizza bot, which will help you order pizza, a Shokes bot, and a deployment alarm bot, which will lead to a first aid kit bot for some reason, movie bots. You can have an Astra bot to tell you if you should deploy or not, depending on your zodiac sign. And of course, in the end, we also had a Dynofacts bot. I mean, communicating with these bots would be easy if they all had normal names like birthday bot, alarm bot, even Astra bot. But we tend to give bots or even programs a personality. So we ended up having names like Rexy, Wally, or Dalek for our bots. Now let's go back to me. Imagine I want to order a pizza. I will have to browse to my Slack directory, trying to find which of the weird name bots is the one that can order pizza for me. And I would be really confused. So, how can we prevent this from happening? The solution for overcrowding your Slack directory with bots is the virtual assistant. The virtual assistant will just know how to speak with each and every one of these functionalities. I will just have to speak to him. So if I want a pizza, I can tell, hey, virtual assistant, I want a pizza, please? And he will say, okay, I don't know how to do it, but I know someone who does. And he will tell Nom Nom, hey, Nom Nom, someone needs you. This way, I have one entry point for my request. I will ask the same bot to order a pizza, or for example, if I want the contact information from the HR executive, everything goes through the virtual assistant, which will take care of dispatching all of these messages to the different bots. Now, if we want to get a little bit more technical, the virtual assistant works by getting inputs. An input can be a typed message, a spoken audio. Maybe you have an adaptive card, which we're going to see later. Those inputs will be sent to different channels. For example, you can have Slack, you can have Teams, Cortana, Microsoft email, Messenger. And you can also have different devices. So maybe you have a smartwatch or a cell phone. Maybe you have an intelligent car who can communicate with your bot. All of these inputs sent through different channels through devices will get processed by the Azure bot service. The Azure bot service, where our bot will be deployed, has different speech capabilities, has Q&A, LUIS models, and different tools to recognize our inputs and dispatch them to the appropriate place. So for example, I can have a knowledge base where frequently asked questions are stored. I can have a third-party assistant connected to my virtual assistant, and I can have skills. And this is where it gets interesting, because skills are just regular bots and they are customizable. So I can have, for example, a mail skill, a calendar skill. I can code my own bots and just connect them to my virtual assistant. So going a little bit more into detail on what skills are, a skill just is a standard conversational bot, but it has the ability to be plugged into a broader solution. For example, our virtual assistant or an enterprise bot. They are kind of like Legos in the sense that they are reusable building blocks, and they can extend the virtual assistant's functionality. The virtual assistant itself doesn't know how to do a lot of stuff. So basically, a skill will be a set of dialogues, integration code, and LUIS models, altogether delivered as source code. This way, we have, for example, the bot skills repository, in which there are a lot of experimental skills that you can clone and start playing with. Maybe you see something, hey, I can use this, but it would be better if I added this other thing. So you can go there, download the code, shape it to your needs, plug it to your virtual assistant, and it will be ready to go. Now, if I have a virtual assistant already, how can I customize and create my own skill. I am going to show that to you now. So here we are. So you can see here I have Visual Studio. I have a Windows terminal with, here I have the path to my virtual assistant, and here I will be creating my skill repository or project. The first thing I want to do is come here to File, New Project, and I will be able to use a skill template. We have also the virtual assistant template, but today I'm going to create a skill. So let's go with the skill template. And here I will say my booking skill. Everything here looks good. I'm just going to click on create. It will take a little time, but this will create all of the assets I need for my booking skill or any skill. It's like a base template. So it has created all of this. I have, for example, the default activity handler. I have services, dialogues. So the first thing I want to do is go to the deployment folder under resources, Loo, and here I will find my general Loo file and my booking skill Loo file. I go to my booking skill one, and here's where I will configure how my virtual assistant will know that I'm talking to the skill. So for example, I want to say booking, and the options I want, for example, if I say booking, I will book a flight. And if I say book a flight, I want my virtual assistant to know that he has to come here. After this step is done, I'm just going to come here and build the solution. While this is being built, I'm going to come to my Windows terminal and I'm going to go inside of my project. So this will be my booking skill, my booking skill, my booking skill. And here, if you see, I have all of the folders you can see here. So now that I'm inside of the skills folder, I'm going to deploy the skill. Right now, the skill doesn't do anything. It's just an empty skill, but I want to leave it deploying while I customize it. So I will say deployment scripts, and this comes with a deploy script in PowerShell. I'm going to then say the name of the skill will be bot skill workshop. Going to put it in the same resource group as my virtual assistant, which is workshop. And then I just have to add, first of all, the app password. The app password will be the password to the application I'm going to be deploying with my virtual assistant. So it has to have upper and lowercase letters, a number, and a special character. So I'm going to say it's virtual assistant 1 exclamation. The location will be West US. And finally, I'll just add the Louis authoring region. Here's where the Louis resources will be deployed, which are West US. And finally, create Louis authoring. And if I typed everything correctly, it should start the deployment now. Here it will create a log file for everything that will happen here. This will take a little bit of a while, so I'm going to start with the customizations now. Okay, we have our skill. The first thing I will want to do is add some dependencies to the project. As I said before, there's a thing called adaptive cards. Adaptive cards are just another way of communicating with your bot. And I will want to add the dependency there. So adaptive cards templating, and I will install it. Here we go with OK. And with that being done, I'm going to create the cards. For creating cards, we have a lovely designer here. The designer will let you add graphically different components, for example, inputs, text blocks, images. I have designed two different cards here. This will be my input card, and this will be my confirmation card. So the cool thing about the designer is that then I can come here and I have all of the payload for my card. So I can just do something like this. I can copy it. And if I go back to my booking skill, I can just add a new item. I'm going to look here for JSON. And I'm going to add a JSON file. I'm going to call this card card input. And this will be the first card we are prompted when speaking to our skill. Here I just paste all of the code I've copied from the designer, and I can just save it, and that's done. Now we want to create the confirmation card. So I'm going to go again to add here, new item. Once again, I want a JSON file, and this will be the confirmation card. And I will just add it. Now, if I go back to the designer, I can come to the confirmation one. Here we have the JSON for it. And I'm going to add the card here. I'm going to change this version because in the emulator I have to use version 1.2. And this is looking good. Great. Now that we have the cards created, we're going to go to dialogues, and we're going to create a waterfall dialog, which will be the one that takes care of creating, prompting the different cards and taking the user's input and passing it to the next step. So I'm going to rename this class to something a little bit more expressive, like custom waterfall dialog. Something like this is okay. Yes, I want to rename it. And the first thing I'm going to do is add a couple of imports. I have them here just to copy and paste them because there's nothing really interesting to say about them. We are just importing the bot builder SDK for C#, dialog, schema, a couple of things. And now the interesting part. First of all, I'm going to say this should inherit from component dialog. And I am going to create the constructor. So this is a public custom waterfall dialog, which will be base name of custom waterfall dialog. Great. I will create the dialogues here. So I'm going to add a new text prompt. And a new number prompt. Okay, with those two created, now I'm going to create a waterfall dialog, and I'm going to give it the steps we're going to be using. So a dialog, I'm going to say new waterfall dialog. And now the steps. So we'll say new waterfall steps. And here is where we say in which order and which are the steps our waterfall dialog will follow. So I'm going to leave this one empty for now because we haven't coded the steps yet, but I will just create an initial dialog ID will be the name of waterfall dialog. Okay, well, great. Now on to coding the steps, which are actually interesting to see. First of all, we will code the generation of the card. This will be, I have the code here and I'm just going to walk you through it for time's sake. But here we have the generate card function, which will receive a card folder, a card name, and parameters. And it will create a card template first out of the JSON files we have created before. Then it's going to create a card attachment, here specifying that this will be an adaptive card and adding the content of the card. And lastly, we're going to create the text prompt with the attachment of the adaptive card, and this will be a message type. So that's the first step, the first function we need for this, not actually a step, this is a helper method. Now on to the steps. The first one will be the details step async. Here we will get the step context and a cancellation token. The step context will have the information from the step we're running. And for example, if in the first one, which was the input card, here I'm going to change that. In the input card, we needed to give it a date just for it to take the current date instead of any other date. So we are doing this here. And then we are generating the card. We're saying where the card is and passing this as a parameter, which will be the date we're going to instantiate our card with. And finally, we just create the card and return the text prompt. The next step we are going to make, which is a little bit longer of a function, will be the card step async, in which we are going to actually create the card in which we show the confirmation. So here we are taking from the step context, we're taking the results of the previous iteration, and we are parsing them to just create, we're going to get the name to where we are going, the name from where we're going, the date, all the information we are going to complete in the input card. This is going to here create a new object with all of this information, which when we create a card, we are going to send as parameters. This will take the card and fill all of the missing information that we added. So, last step now, which will be the final step async. I'm going to add it right below. This final step will take the action we did in the previous steps. So if we go back to the card, you see I can choose either select or cancel. We're going to take that input and we're going to parse it. So if we choose select, I'm going to say, hey, thank you for this. We will be contacting you soon. And if I cancel the order, it's just going to say, hey, you cancel your order, and we'll finish the conversation. Now to finish wrapping this up, I'm going to go to the constructor and I am going to say details. Oof, that's not details. Step sync. The card step async. And the final step async. Great. There was a typo there. Okay, so I have my custom waterfall created. Now what I have to do is go to the activity handler. We are going to go to the actual bot thingy. And here we have different handlers for different events. You can trigger an event when you are the member, when you receive a message. We are going to go to the onMessage activity async method, which will get triggered with every time we get a message. And what I want to do here is remove this because I don't care about the channel nor about the message type. And add another validation. I want to check here that I lost here. I want to check here that the activity value isn't null, so I'm going to go to activity. Value is not null. And instead of returning the completed task, I am going to assign to the activities text the serialized value of the activity to show it. So I'm going to say here, activity text, JSON convert. Oh, I forgot to add a using here. So here in the top, I'm going to using Newtonsoft JSON. Great. No, back to here, JSON convert, serialize object, and I'm going to serialize the activity value. Great. And that's all we need to change in the default activity handler. Now we are going to go to the startup class right here. And we need to change a couple of service registrations. So in this function, configure services, I am going to go first of all to register dialogues. We are not going to use any of these dialogues, so I'm just going to delete them. And I want to create a singleton. So add singleton for our custom waterfall dialog. So custom waterfall dialog. There we go. And then I will want to go to the configuration of the bot. And instead of the default activity handler using the main dialog that comes by default, I want to use the custom waterfall dialog. So we just have to change that there. And after all of this is done, we have finished configuring and customizing our skill. So, well, the deployment is about to finish. Now it's training and publishing the Luis app. So what I'm going to do is, while this finishes, I'm going to quickly show you how you can create a virtual assistant out of this. So if you don't have a virtual assistant already deployed, or if you don't have the code and you want to create one yourself, all I did for this was go into new project. And here, when we have create a new project, one of the templates I have is the virtual assistant template. If you go to next, here you can have my second assistant. And this will just create out of the template a new virtual assistant that you can then deploy. For example, if you want to, you can customize. In my case, the virtual assistant I have deployed is just one out of the box. I haven't made any changes to it. It's exactly this. I just built it and deployed it. It has, if you look here at deployment, the scripts, same as in their skill, you have a deployment skill and a publish skill. The publish script is for when you make any changes and you want to update those changes in Azure. So this has to be done anytime now. I'm going to actually open the other assistant I have. Okay, this has finished. You will see an error in the console. We can ignore this error because it failed. If I go to the logs, deployment here, I go to the publish logs, it has failed because adaptive cars are you missing a reference. I was modifying the project while this was deploying, so that created an error. It's nothing important. We are going to fix it in a second. So now I have the deployed skill, I have my code. The first thing I need to do is update the skill manifest. The skill manifest just has some information about our skill, and it's a JSON file. And if you see, it has all of this, where as a template, I have your skill app ID and your skill URL. So what I'm going to do is come to my terminal, and I have this bot skill workshop Azure website.net, and I'm going to copy that. And everywhere when it says your skill URL, I'm going to replace it with this. So it's a couple of places and here. And where it says your skill app ID, I'm going to choose this here, copy it, and replace it here. So we have the app ID, the endpoint URL. We should be ready to go. The next step will be to publish our skill with the changes we have made to the manifest and with all the changes we have deployed. So first of all, I'm going to build it, pray to the gods of C# that I haven't misspelled anything again. And when we finish building, I'm going to be able to publish it. Okay, so the command to publish it will be once again in deployment, scripts, publish. We have the PowerShell script. I'm just going to say name. Here, instead of the name I used before, I have to use this bot web app name, which if you see, it's the same, but it has a thing in the back. So I'm just going to add it there. Then we have the resource group. I'm going to use workshop as I did before. So this is done. I should publish it. This takes a little while to publish. So while it's publishing, I'm going to go to the virtual assistant tab. And here is where I'm going to use the bot skills CLI. So great. Bot skills, I say bot skills. I have already installed it. It's an npm package. So bot skills connect will take care of connecting my skill to my assistant. I'm going to say this is C# and the remote manifest. I have the URL right around here, but if I come here, workshop Azure websites.net. / manifest / JSON. There we go. This is the bot skills manifest. It's the same URL we were using before, but with the manifest JSON, it's always the same. Then I'm going to add the Luis folder, which will be the Luis folder of my skill. Luis folder will be, and I have the link to the folder here. It's that one, the one we modified at the beginning. And before running it, I will want this to finish. So I'm going to wait for a little bit for that to be done. The publishing steps usually takes just a couple of minutes because it's only republishing what you have changed before. So while it's done already. So we're not going to do anything while we wait. Now I will go to here and I will connect my virtual assistant with my skill. It's super easy. It's just that command. Now, if I want to go to my virtual assistant now, I'm going to go to the app settings JSON, and here I have all of my virtual assistant information. So I want to go to my endpoint. So this is the endpoint. No. Okay. So I'm going to grab the name. Here, be a workshop. Here it is. Okay, it has been finished published. So now if I go to the emulator, it has finished connecting. Now if I go to the emulator, this is the endpoint via workshop Azure /API/messages. I'm going to grab the app ID and I'm going to grab the app password. This will connect and it will prompt you it will ask your name. My name is Mick. And is there anything I can do for you? Book a flight. So it's telling me that it seems like there is an error. He's not really convinced of doing that for me. So what I'm going to do now is publish the changes I have done here. That will be the usual response a virtual assistant will give you if you try to contact a skill it doesn't know. So now we're going to publish the virtual assistant changes. We're going to go to VA workshop, and the resource group is workshop. We're going to go like that. And while we wait, I will go to my skill to show you that I can communicate with my skill even though it's not connected to the virtual assistant yet. So I will just have to grab the endpoint, the app ID, and the app password, and I will connect. This takes a little bit of a while. Everything takes a while today. Here. Hey. Okay. So it's not liking something right now. Published, it was published, it was deployed. So let me check something. I seem to have an issue with the deployment. Let's see. Let's go to the card input. That's it. Is this okay? Yes, this is. So I'm rebuilding that, republishing it. If I go to Azure workshop and I update this, okay, I should have the web app here. And if I test it in the web chat, weird. Okay, I'm republishing it just in case, because there seems to be something odd. Just in case, I'm going to go to the virtual assistant and refresh it. See if I have any issue here. Okay. Hi, my name is Mick. Book a flight. Okay, it looks like I have an issue with the skill that has been deployed because the virtual assistant is recognizing the intent. So it's just saying, hey, I can't actually read the skill right now. There's something wrong with your skill. But let's see what's wrong with my skill. So if I try to come here. Something went wrong. Let's see. Are these names okay? Permission card. Oh, here's the problem. This should be called card input. That's my fault for changing the thing's names. Okay, now it should. It should work now. So when I reveal the solution, I once again just have to republish it. If you're ever building your own skill and it fails, you can quickly retest it and republish it. It's not big of a deal, but yeah, things that can happen. So it's republishing my skill. It will take a couple of seconds, but when that's done, it should work fine. Now, if I go to the virtual assistant, and for example, I want to ask him something different, he doesn't know how, he knows how to, but he's having issues with my skill. But for example, if I ask, would you marry me? Even though he can't contact the skill I added, he usually knows how to answer other stuff. So if you have one broken skill, it won't affect the rest of your virtual assistant. You can still communicate with the other stuff you have connected. So this would go through Q&A, for example, and it will take an answer from the pool of answers it has. It's a great way of not breaking everything every time you have an issue. Maybe you pushed something that wasn't working or did something wrong with one of your skills, it won't break the rest of your assistant. And that's a cool thing to have nowadays when you can easily break production code. So this is still publishing, shouldn't take much longer. I'm going to go get the information about, okay, that's done. If I get this URL now and I open a bot, then I'm going to go here, Microsoft App ID, and the Microsoft App password, and I'm going to connect. And if the gods of Azure like me this time, everything's going to work. Okay, there we go. Nice thing to see. So now I'm talking just to the skill, not through the virtual assistant. And it's going to work just fine. So if I say Buenos Aires here to Paris, one passenger and the date, and I search, it's going to show me this card in which, hey, confirm me your flight. And if I go with select, it will state, thanks for choosing that. We will contact you soon. Now, if I go to my assistant instead and I refresh this conversation, he's going to ask me what my name is. So my name is Mick. My name is Mick. he's going to know that my name is Mick. It's not my name, but Mick alone. I'm going to say book a flight here. And it's going to prompt me with the same conversation it prompts me in the skill. So once again, Buenos Aires, London. And the flight is going to be for 2 people, and I would like it to be the 24th. And if I go to search, it will show me this card in which I can choose the flight. Right now, of course, it's not communicating with anything. It's not bringing me actual flights. But this shows the capability it has to create the cards, the conversation, go in and out of a skill. And when I choose select again, it's just going to prompt me with the same message as before. Thanks for choosing that. We will contact you soon. And Adam, let me know if I can do anything else. So that's a new message we didn't receive here because this is the virtual assistant speaking instead of the skill speaking. Great. So going back to here. That's kind of all for the virtual assistant itself. Now could be a great time for Q&A.
So you can leave your questions in the chat. I know we have a couple. So one question was if you can also change the look of your bot.
The look, for example, if you want to change the UI. I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
They meant the UI of the bot. I think so. If you didn't mean that, write it in the chat, but I assume that what they meant.
Okay, so here I'm using the bot framework emulator. The emulator is usually just used to test the stuff. You are not going to, no, like it looks like a male right now. Can you change it to a female? Let me see. This or how it speaks.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can change. Remember, first of all, this is I'm not fully customizing this. So there you could use any image you want. You could also not use anything at all here in the first message it sends. I don't think I've never tried changing the bot gender, but I know you can change the way it responds to you. So maybe you can go with something a little bit more informal. Yeah, it could be more of like an animation. If I show you again the cards here. So the designer, what you're seeing there is just an adaptive card in which instead of, for example, if I go to new card, I should have different options of cards, but instead of maybe adding inputs and stuff, they just put the virtual assistant image. So these are all the type of cards you have like pre-built. What you see there is just one of those, but instead of having that virtual assistant, you could maybe customize your own or add your business logo there. That's fully customizable.
And then I hope that answered your question. And another question was, you said, so you meant that we could have multiple skills attached to one bot?
Exactly. The virtual assistant will be like the center, and it will be connected to different things. So kind of like a network or like a spider web, something like that, in which every end has a different bot. And it can just speak to that bot, or maybe if instead of booking a flight, I wanted to book a table for a restaurant, I can plug it the skill and it will know how to book a table and book a flight.
Great.
Great.
I believe that these were all the questions so far. Does anyone else have any more questions for Micaela? Awesome.
Great. So remember, you can check all of these code and things out. The virtual assistant SDK is open source, so you can go check that out there, or in Southworks/virtual assistant workshop, you can find everything. And if you want to get in touch with me, my LinkedIn is linked in my speaker profile. I think if you click my face,
yes, you can
see
find
that,
Micaela there, and also I believe you can directly message her through Hopin. And yeah, you said your GitHub repository, your project was Southworks slash virtual assistant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I'm going to type it. Southworks virtual assistant workshop. There we have a workbook where you can follow all of the steps I followed today on your own, maybe slower, with a lot of helpful links and more information.
Awesome.